No, we don't have the trademark on that. Probably Capcom does, if anybody. Maybe don't tell them we're using that. Anyway, it's great to have you here after lunch. We have another really great round of keynotes. We're going to kick things off a little differently with a panel all around innovation, which I'm really excited about. So again, we're going to be using Slido quite a bit for this to ask and answer questions. So please be submitting those as we go along, and we'll jump into those. But enough for me, at least for a little bit. I'm going to introduce Abdul Sheikh, who will be, no. Help me, please. No, oh my goodness. Rashid? Sheikh. We got to do these things right. Rashid, go ahead, take it for us. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Matt. So, yeah, we are here to talk about innovation. I know this guy is good because he makes up stuff on the spot. So we just dragged him into this panel because the fourth one bailed out, and I'm sure he's going to do a good job. With us, we have a very diverse panel. Melissa, she's a principal product manager with Farfetch. And we have Dan Walker, he's the senior product manager from Typeform. And before we get into what innovation is, let's know a bit more about our panel. Sorry, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm a senior product manager with Amazon. I've been with Amazon for roughly about 10 months now. I have overall 15 years of experience. I have been a developer, a marketing guy, a sales guy, product marketing guy, and a product manager. So probably done everything that I could have done in the past 15 years. Over to you, Melissa.
Yeah, hi everybody. Thanks for coming to our panel. This is the first one I've done since lockdown in person, I think. So it's nice to have you guys in real life for once. But I'm Melissa. I'm from Silicon Valley in the United States, and I've always worked in innovation teams. So I'm currently a principal product manager at Farfetch, where I've led innovation teams on our connected retail kind of luxury innovation lab. And prior to that, I was at Microsoft for a number of years across France as well as the United States on our founding team of Cortana, which was an AI personal assistant. So yeah, nice to see you all.
Hi all, I'm Dan. I work at Typeform. Typeform is a no-code tool for building beautiful forms that you can then use to build apps. It's already had a shout out by Ollie earlier on, which was great. Before that, I started my career on the venture capital side of things. Helping coach and support very early stage entrepreneurs right at the beginning of their journey. And then tried my hand at that, and then recently moved on to Typeform. So I have a mixture of sort of engineering, some VC side of stuff, and then product management for the last 7 or 8 years.
And hi, I'm Matt with K15T. I've had a roller coaster of a career. I started in IT and then network planning. And then when that sucked the soul out of me, I moved into being sort of a Scrum Master systems admin on a product team, and then followed into content writing, both for product marketing and for technical communication. And then I moved to my current company, where I have worked with our product teams directly. And now I've settled into customer enablement and creating content for YouTube to help our users learn how to use Confluence, because it's hard to use sometimes.
Very useful.
Yeah, I love it. It's fun.
Okay, perfect. Now that you know who we are, let's talk about why we are here. Innovation. So I'll just steal some lines from the previous panel, which was there a few days back. And the female on the panel told a very interesting thing, that innovation is net positive change that is a result of any improvement process or anything that you are trying to improve. And the word that clicked was net. Right? When you are trying to innovate, it's not always that you'll end up with all the positives in the world. You'll not have all the positive outcomes. There are going to be some negatives about it, but even when you move a step ahead in the process, that's the net positive change. And for me, that clicked. It's like you don't have to kill yourself to be perfect, to innovate something. But then I also know that innovation after strategy is the most abused word in the corporate world today. It used to be strategy, and now I think it is innovation. So let's hear from the experts what they think about innovation. Melissa, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. I think there's many different types of innovation, whether it be improving processes existing already, or bringing brand new, net new kind of products, services, or experiences to a group or even a whole entire industry. I think the latter is what I've mainly focused on in my career, being within separate innovation teams or research and development labs within the context of a wider corporation. So at Farfetch, we're a leading global platform for luxury fashion and beauty. We've got about 6,000 employees. At Microsoft, it was huge, probably over 100,000 employees. But I was always sitting on an innovation team, and our goal and remit was really to accelerate growth and new business kind of opportunities, white space opportunities for the group. So that's how we looked at innovation, was having separate business units really focused on accelerating those new visions and bringing that to the roadmap of the other product teams.
That's interesting, Dan.
Yeah, cool. I think I'll try and give the most simple definition that I can possibly think of, which is innovation is ultimately doing something different to try and get different outcomes. And I'll also break the cardinal rule and get product management bingo going by quoting Steve Jobs. And there's a lovely quote that he gives where he talks about when you realize that life is this thing that you can poke something and something will pop out the other side. And I suppose that's it at its heart, right? It's trying to do something different and trying to get a different outcome. You hope, as you said, that outcome is something that's positive for your metrics, for the world, for your career, whatever. But not always the case, right?
I think innovation is two things. First, I think it's sort of a repurposing of maybe things we've done before, things we've tried before, just in new ways. We see lots of companies do that, both big and small. Sometimes it's just implementing it at the right time or changing it in the right way, trying it again. I think that's a huge part of it. And also, I'm a big believer in fast following. So I've worked in small software companies where we're not spending hundreds of thousands just playing around with AR and AI to see what we could make as a product. But we were building on a platform. Somebody does something cool, they give us APIs, and we're 6 months behind. But you're still innovating. You're still providing a product or service for people in that industry, in that space that they've just never seen before or had access to.
That's interesting. You just said that you have worked for a very small company, and I know all four of us are from very different types of company, from different sizes that we come from. How is really different for you guys? Can you just start explaining how it is different for you than what you perceive would be for Dan or for Matt, that matter?
Yeah, I think working in a large corporation, you do have kind of the safety maybe or the resources of lots of different people that you can work with and budget that you can leverage. But however, I found that working in the innovation team, you still have to convince people that what you're proposing and what your vision is the right thing to spend resources on. So there's a lot of different methods that I've used to kind of get exec buy-in, whether it's really interesting demos, or I found that a working piece of code and prototype or proof of concept goes miles in terms of convincing people to really see the value and the promise of a new technology or experience. So I think even though we have the kind of safety net of a larger corporation, you still really need to be scrappy sometimes, rally people around an idea, and make sure that you can kind of convince other stakeholders that your idea or your area is one that should be prioritized. I know you've worked at smaller companies as well. I don't know how you found it.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the nub of it. Ollie also said about context being everything, and I think that's the key thing here, right? Because as we start to talk more about innovating as product managers, the conversation is going to go in a different way. And Typeform has about 500 employees. Farfetch is 5,000, 6,000. Yeah. Amazon, gazillion.
Much bigger.
Huge.
And so there's such different flavors of innovation there. And I noticed that the way that you drive innovation and get success from trying to try different things with your product has totally different dynamics based on the experience you're in. So 4 years ago, I was sitting with myself and another co-founder trying to start up a business. And at that point, you've got zero channel to talk about your innovations to. You've got zero resource to build those innovations. And that is so difficult in a very different way to the experience that I'm living now, where even having 500 people work at the company, all of a sudden, user research is delivered to me, and that's a novel experience, right? And I want to get user interviews booked, and someone is there to help me book them. There's product marketing teams and that sort of thing, and so it's then very different, and it becomes a little bit more about internal stakeholder management and trying to fight for the innovation that you're trying to deliver and getting the high on the agenda. And so it's I think it's totally different flavors. So I can't actually perceive what the day-to-day job looks like in a different way.
Yeah, before that takes over, I just remembered a very cheeky thing that one of my ex-manager used to say: if necessity is the mother of invention, then resource constraint is the father of innovation. The more constrained you are, the more you are forced to innovate because you don't have any other option.
To be
and
creative.
I think, you have to be creative. You have to think of solutions out of the box, and that leads you to innovate. Over to you, Matt. Sorry.
No, that's fine. It's funny, when I worked for a very large corporation, we were never financially successful. So their technique was always just let people go. So if you failed, you're gone. If you're doing well, you're gone. So there was never that feeling of stability. And innovation happened in Excel spreadsheets, if at all, right? Like innovation was just not, it was a thing that was given as lip service. In contrast, at K15T, it's the first company I've come to that's been like financially successful off the bat. Like I remember justifying a crazy small like webcam purchase, and people were like, "Yeah, just buy it." And like that, it's taken me time to embrace. Oh wow, I can fiddle around. I can get a little messy here. But also, my CEO kind of pulled the safety net out a little bit by transforming it into a self-organized organization. So there is no management structure. Each team is responsible for every aspect of their product, and the big responsibility there is, am I innovating? Am I making choices that are best for the company? Because like, it's not the manager's fault in the end. It's the team's, and you're part of the team. And that's like great, but also intimidating and empowering.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Again, you mentioned Excel. I'll be just picking on your words because that's what I'm going to do today.
Please do.
So you said that Excel sheets where you were innovating. And that's actually what I used to do when I was working for a very small company with 200 employees. We created a complete translation management software or a language translation management software just based on an Excel sheet. And how we did it is a different story, but because we did not have money to go out and buy a software for us. So as I said, the more constrained you are, the more innovative you will be. But again, how do you identify that this is the opportunity where you can innovate, or you can add value by being a product manager in that setup, identifying the opportunities, and then leveraging that your team to really innovate? How do you guys do it? Is it a simple job for a product manager? Is it difficult? Maybe we can start with Dan this time.
Yeah, for sure. I remember the most transformative thing that I heard or read with regards to this was, does anyone follow Shreyas on Twitter? It's like probably like the single highest leverage thing I've done in the past couple of years. So it's worth setting up a Twitter account if you don't have one. It's Shreyas, and he was one of the first product managers at Stripe. He was at Amazon and Twitter before that. And he posted this thing about like innovation, measuring innovation. He said like one level of innovation is, are you solving a problem that's interesting to yourself, interesting and difficult to solve? The next level is, are you solving a problem that will give you a return on investment, and that you can identify will give you a return on investment? And then the third level is being opportunity cost focused, and it's about trying to think, is this the best possible problem that I can solve with my limited resource and time? And I think when I started to overlay that framework on top of things, it immediately made me look at different opportunities in a totally different way, because I thought like, yes, okay, this is a really interesting problem. And yes, okay, this other idea that I've got will definitely return like the level of investment what we're putting into it. But is it the best possible problem that you can solve? And that makes you think bigger with the ideas that you're trying to tackle and the things that you're trying to build. And it felt truly transformative. There we go. Transformative when I read that and started to try and apply that to my everyday backlog.
We have some free time built into everyone's work time. We call it Freiraum because we're based in Germany and we come up with cool names. And we really push that. We really push people to like try your ideas, try your thoughts, and also encourage people to work together on things. And that is not just lip service. I kind of thought it was when we introduced it, but like seeing whole products come out of that is great. But one of the things that I've seen also ruin innovation, be it a hackathon project or something that comes out of that time, is lack of documentation. Somebody knows what the why is, somebody knows how the thing was built or where the code lives even. But then if you close out the hackathon with beers and don't check stuff in, don't write stuff down, it's just a bottomless pit of where innovation goes to die. So as boring as that sounds, I think documentation on that story, where did this process start, where did the why come from, I think is so essential.
Yeah, that's true. Get your basics right. On one hand, we are talking about innovation, we are talking machine learning, artificial intelligence. But if you don't have your basics right, if you don't have documentation around it, it becomes difficult to follow what someone is trying to innovate.
Yeah.
We are product managers. A lot of us suffer from I'm assuming a lot of us are product managers. Sorry about that assumption. But a lot of us suffer from the imposter syndrome. And when you enter a room, you always have this dilemma if I'm saying something right, because there is a UX expert, there is a IT expert, basically your programmers, and then there is someone from legal or marketing, and then you are not an expert in any one of those things. But as a product manager, it becomes difficult to pitch your idea and get a buy-in, right? That this is what we are going to do. I just did that yesterday and I was thrown out of the room because that sounded like a stupid idea. And probably it was, and I had to accept that and move on and probably work on a better idea. How do you guys get a buy-in from your product manager, from your teams or people around you as product managers?
I think there's, lots of different ways you can do it. I talked about having a working prototype being extremely effective at showing the promise of, hey, we kind of know how to start building this to scale, and also you can do a lot of tests to prove its viability. So one example I'll talk about, I worked with my colleague Owen in the back there, who was in our user research group at the time, and we had an idea around solving, basically figuring out how we make a sense of the connected retail space. So in the store, it's kind of a data desert, basically. We get a lot of information online from what people are browsing, what brands they're clicking on, et cetera, to then personalize the experience. But in the offline world, in the store, which is where I focus on, we didn't really have that visibility. So we spun out a prototype to basically test a solution, which I can talk more about later. And we ran we used as much data as we could to convince stakeholders that this was something that we should invest in. We did a user research study where we actually had people come in and use the prototype during their shopping journey. We did a lot of data gathering to basically show this is the impact on the customer that we could potentially have with releasing this. This is the business case and the viability. And I think that kind of culmination, as well as a lot of energy and togetherness with the team, was really effective at getting buy-in.
Oh, that makes sense. Now, talking about the other side of the table, where your engineers are sitting in the room, they have their ideas, but they are not sure or they are not confident enough to present that idea to you. How do you foster that culture within the team for them to speak up and come up with the ideas and probably innovate something for the larger benefit of the company?
Yeah, sure. In answering this, I also want to go back to how you initially posed the question, which was around imposter syndrome. And imposter syndrome is not always a bad thing, right? The other side of the imposter syndrome coin is being a psychopath, where you wholeheartedly believe in everything every idea that you have. And I think that's then also that relates to part of our job as product managers. Our job as product managers is not to be idea factories and come up with the ideas. Ideas are 10 a penny, and there's no virtue or value in an idea in of itself. Our job as product managers is to deliver ways of thinking about different ideas to try and understand what are the things that we should be tackling now, and more importantly, what are the problems that we should be ignoring for the time being, and aren't the most valuable things to deliver. And so with that in mind, getting ideas from the engineers is super valuable, because they have a huge amount of insight and influence over the product that you're building. It's easy to think that we're doing the hard work because we're scoping out ideas and we're doing the back and forth with the product designers and we're doing all of the research, but they're building it, and so they know exactly as they're putting UI in, this UI makes no sense here, but because someone else has said I should put it here, I'll put it in here. And they're actually spending a lot more time thinking about it. And so I think it's incumbent on us to build spaces where engineers can put their hand up and say, hey, this is stupid. Or put their hand up and say, like, are we sure that we should be tackling this at this moment in time? And fostering that culture is the most valuable thing. And you do that through positive affirmation, right? You let them try. Maybe they come up with some naff ideas sometimes and build some naff ideas, but like eventually they'll build some great stuff. And it'll be phenomenal.
That's funny. I always thought that engineers, somewhere down there, they just think that product managers are stupid, right? They're there for no reason. They are doing all the job. So, but over to you, Matt. Do you have any opinion here?
I just spoke with someone by the espresso machine who was saying that he has 30 years of background in engineering and product marketing. And I was just like, oh my goodness, that's generations of knowledge in the product world, right? And I just said, like, how many times have you seen people suggest this great new idea that you thought of 5 years ago and you saw someone think of 10 years ago? So much of this, I think it comes down to communication, right? If we're feeling unsure, everyone else is too. And you either have someone who's compensating for that, maybe it's your CEO, maybe it's an engineer, right? And they're just like blasting into that meeting, into that space, or you have the people that aren't speaking up. So I remember when I started as a Scrum Master, the first thing I did was learn how each of my engineers like to communicate, right? With Ted Houston, who's a brilliant guy, it was direct, very direct and kind of seemingly cold, right in stand-up. But then with Jeff Hubie, it was over ice cream. I don't know why, but that was what worked. So I think some of it is getting into that space, whatever that space is that you've created, and knowing how to reach in and help that person bring out their thoughts. And if you can't do that ahead of time, one of the things my CEO has started to do that we've adopted in our product teams is presenting something on Zoom, right, or whatever tool you're using, present it, 5 minutes, and then send everybody into breakout rooms with some very pointed questions. What do you think about this? How would you improve this? And it's amazing how even if people come back with the same conclusions you have, everyone has a shared confidence and a shared viewpoint. Or maybe they're going to come back with some really good killer feedback for you. Either way, it's really about helping everyone with the same insecurity that we're all feeling around the table.
I think it's about creating psychological safety within your teams as well, and creating that environment where people feel safe to put out what they think might be a stupid idea, and so you can talk about it and have that healthy conversation. I used to organize these monthly lunch kind of brainstorm sessions that we call light bulb sessions, and we would invite everyone, all our stakeholders from marketing to copywriting to engineering to product, to all come together and brainstorm around a certain topic, and people felt that was a very casual way. We had really good food, but it really let people kind of feel more comfortable with submitting ideas, even though that wasn't in their role as a non-project manager.
So communication is the key to innovation. Right? Okay, I know you spoke about POC, but how do you guys really test that whatever you're doing is the right thing, or you're innovating something that is for the greater good of the company or for the team? How do you validate your ideas?
For us at Farfetch, when I was working in our connected retail space, we actually had a number of different ways where we would test and pilot our ideas. So we actually built a simulation store in one of our labs in Porto, which is really cool. Like, it's a meeting room that we basically turned into a store. So it had a rail, it had a checkout spot, where it had clothing as well, where people can kind of test their products on the different items. So we tested a lot in the lab. We also used our own homes, especially during the pandemic, where it was really hard to validate ideas because the stores were closed. I used my own closet to test things in and new technologies to track my location as I was walking from room to room. My kitchen was my menswear department, my bathroom was the womenswear department, et cetera. So we validate a lot internally and do a lot of internal dog fooding as well. And then we also do user research, as I mentioned before, which is helpful to get an actual target user's perspective on how your product might perform. And I think a culmination of that helps you get a lot of metrics around, is your product trending towards success at achieving the KPIs that you set out prior to building it.
That's interesting. So dog fooding, that's another key to be sure that what you are building is the right thing to build. It all sounds so rosy, right? You communicate, you document, and then you already have something very innovative right in front of you, but that's not always the case. But did you ever fail while innovating or trying to innovate something?
Rashid, you looked straight at me in the eyes when you said that. This guy looks like he's failed.
I just thought that I'll have a good answer coming from there.
No, don't worry. We spoke about it before. Yeah, for certain, right? And I think the reality is that failure is a necessary part of innovation. It's part of it. And if you think you're not failing at any level, then I'm not sure you're entirely doing any level of innovation, right? Because unless you've been ordained with the light and you know exactly what's going on. I've had lots of small failings, lots of iterative failings. I had a big failing as well. I founded a company, and I'm not here representing that company. I didn't sell it, so something went on there. And we were trying to tackle a really big vision. We were trying to work out how we could improve the mental well-being of students at university, and we thought that the way to do that would be to supply universities with really valuable data on the well-being of their students. And we thought if we could do that, then we could point universities, or universities could point themselves in the way to solve that problem. And we did things by the book, based, what Ollie said earlier on around the gold standard. We did all of it. We went through it. We had a great beta group of customers. They were paying right from get-go, so they were engaged. But we built too complex a solution to the problem, even though the problem was massively complex. We built too complex a solution from day one, and it meant that it was too hard to be taken on throughout the whole organizations of the universities we're working with. And so that was a phenomenal lesson to me. And the other side of the failure coin should be learning, otherwise it's real failure. And the learning that really sticks with me from that is, whenever you come up with any solution, there's the 5 whys, you should also have the 5 simplifies, and you should say, okay, what can I cut out? 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 Until you've boiled it down to the most simple form. And I think that was definitely the most valuable lesson there. And painful failing, right?
Yep.
Dedicate years of it. You ask for money, and you get money. We had 40 employees, so we tried to get 40 employees to buy into this vision, and they did. And it didn't work. But
so in spite of doing everything right, there is a very high chance that you wouldn't succeed or really come up with the innovation that people really want out there.
And I think this is down to the key of it. I'd be really interested. Can we have a show of hands of people that work in companies that have less than 50 people in them? So, okay, a spattering, 4 or 5. And I think what I want to say is what you're doing is so hard. It's so difficult. And so pat yourself on the back for trying to do it, because the thing, we did everything right. Well, we obviously didn't do everything right. But in order for something to take off, you really need to achieve and get the right thing going on all of those levels in order for it to really fly. So it's difficult when you're starting with nothing, and you've got to innovate on internal processes as well as your customer, as well as the product that you're offering, as well as the channel that you're talking to them through. It's really, really hard.
Such an insightful answer. And that's the reason I was looking at you. Do you guys have anything to add here?
Yeah, I think if you're not failing, you're not taking big enough risks, especially in innovation. I failed tons of times in terms of proof of concepts that ended up not meeting our KPIs, or we never rolled out to the public, that never saw the light of day. One of them was when I was working at Microsoft. We were working really closely with the Microsoft Research, who are a team of amazing, amazing scientists and PhDs and best people in their field. We were working on Cortana, which was the artificial intelligence and a personal assistant, and I was in charge of her personality, so how she reacted to customers, how she expressed urgency or emotion in her animations, text, and voice. And we were basically trying to kind of personify or humanize her to better connect and create trust with the user. So I went to Microsoft Research, and there was a woman there called Mary Swinsky, and she's an expert in emotion detection. So I had a proposition, what if we could detect the user's emotion, and then we could change Cortana to react correctly in terms of if the user was stressed or feeling sad or happy or normal. And so sometimes the biggest problem is not the tech itself. We were actually able to prove that we could detect what the user's emotional state was from on-device signals. For example, if you're stressed, you talk talk faster. You might make more spelling mistakes when you're typing, etc. So we were able to do that part, but we couldn't figure out a right way in terms of a customer experience of what's to do with that information. If we know a user is sad, like, do we really want to intervene and maybe cause something worse to happen? So that was a big kind of investigation and experimentation that we did with Microsoft Research that ended up not shipping in the final product. But I think it's important that we learned so much from that, and we took part of that initiative and turned it into something else that we did end up releasing, which was detecting if a customer had a calendar invite or a shipping notification or a flight that we could remind them about later. So fail fast, but fail often as well, so that you can learn and move on to the next thing.
Absolutely. Just two more questions before we can open up to the audience. Any tools, frameworks that you guys use to ensure that you're on the right track? Again, it was not on purpose that I was looking at you, because that's just more convenient for me. Any one of you can start, please.
One of the things that we get to cheat with a little bit is Atlassian has a Confluence marketplace. So that's a really great resource for us. But what we found is when we have an idea for an app, there's other partners out there, either like really solid users or other app makers for Atlassian or other platforms, where we're like kind of dog fooding with them. And that's been really valuable because they can feel that partnership there, whether it's a customer or someone else. Even if you're competing in some ways, that camaraderie is a really powerful thing. And those are the same people that will become advocates if that spark of an idea moves. We talked about going from skunkworks projects to a launched product. You need those types of people to market that solution, to market that innovation when you get there. You need those stories. So if you can cheat like that, even if you're giving people, scaled up or scaled down pictures of the UI, anything, that is so valuable. Just get it in front of people to try it, see if your idea is crazy or effective.
Yeah, my response was going to be in the same line, like talk to your customers, talk to your prospective customers. And a great book, if you haven't read it, is The Mom Test. Here, it's about how do you talk to them in ways that you're getting, unadulterated candor back from them, rather than, when you talk to your mum and you say, "Do you like my drawing?" and she says, "Yes, of course I do, sweetie." So that's a great framework. And then I think the extension of that is like ask your customers to pay for what you're trying to build, and that's the ultimate test of innovation, right? If they're willing to put other budget or your budget ahead of other budget in order to get it through.
Right. That's so true. Your customer is your primary source of innovation. At least that's what I have felt. In my previous company, I used to start my day by going through an Excel sheet with thousands of feedback from my customers from the previous day or previous week. And I used to look out for words which would be beeped if I say it now, because that used to be my source of requirement or source of innovation that I really need to take care of now to have my customers coming back to my site again. So that's an interesting insight.
I think also when you're looking more long-term, which is what I've been working on at Farfetch, we use this framework called the Futures Thinking Framework from the Institute of the Future. Jane McGonigal runs that program, and there's a lot of different exercises, such as like looking backwards in the past to understand your consumer's behavior to look forward, and there are a lot of things like figuring out what signals there are in the market to see what will become prevalent in the future. We focus a lot on Gen Z and Gen Alpha as well to understand who are our customers of tomorrow going to be like, what are their needs, what are the trends that we're seeing in the market right now with the younger generation, who will be our majority of the customers later on. So those are some of the things that we look to as well when we're trying to predict the future.
Sorry, we are short on time. I would have asked a question about how do we measure innovation, but I'll drop that one to something which is probably more relevant to the guys here, and the lead is here. How necessary it is to be technical to innovate in this digital space that you guys are working in?
I mean, it's like everything, right? Is it necessary? No. Is it helpful? Yes. And I suppose it's what we heard at the start. Like, you want to try and make your knowledge T-shaped as much as possible. So you want to have good breadth, but then you want to have really good depth in a certain number of areas. And I suppose it's dependent on the type of product that you're working on, right? Like, if you're working on Stripe on an API that processes 2 billion worth of payments a day, like, it's probably a good idea that you have a good level of technical knowledge in order to deliver for the customer there. But one thing that I would also say is don't be scared of trying to be technical if you consider yourself a non-technical PM. And don't be scared of asking stupid questions. And in fact, don't be scared of putting the onus on your engineering teams to get them to explain technical concepts to you so that you can then re-explain it to other parts of the business, because you have to advocate, and that's part of it. But yeah, I think it certainly helps. We had we were working on some new functionality recently, and tech debt prioritization came up, which is great. It's like, oh yeah, do we have to? But I've got a great story, and we did prioritize the tech debt, and we totally re-architected this bit of the product that we're working on. And the results started to come through, and the results were far higher than I anticipated. And I was like, what is going on here? And we realized that because it had been re-architected, the area of the app was performing so much better that people weren't bouncing away from it. And so our top of funnel just exploded. It was 18% uplift on an already well-performing bit of the app. And I think that then begs the question to try and understand that technical nature of the product that we're building a little bit more, because you can start to then understand what your levers are, and that then fits into that opportunity cost framework model of thinking about things, where you're like, okay, cool. In fact, doing some tech debt might be the highest impact stuff that I can be doing at the moment. So
That's true. Anything from you both?
I would agree with, ask your engineers, or ask your sales engineers. As was mentioned, sometimes our sales engineers know more about our product than our engineers do, and that will just do nothing but create relationships and improve people's ability to communicate, either written or spoken. It will only improve everyone if these things are reiterated or written down so that people can reference them in the future.
That's true. So you don't have to really come from a technical background, but you have to develop that ability to talk to your engineers and understand what they're trying to say. Because even though I brag that I was an engineer in my previous life, which was 15 years back, I was developing in Fortran, which does not exist today. So
Nice.
yeah, I do have to evolve every time I join a new company which is working on a new technology stack. And I think that's a task for all of us here. I think with that, we'll open up to question from the audience, if any.
There's a voting thing, right?
It'll show up here,
Okay.
if we have any from Slido.
Any questions?
Oh, there are many. I think this would be more relevant to you, because it says incorporates innovation. Teams are often shut down after half years, 1 to 2 years, restarted called labs, restarted again called venture teams. Where is it going wrong?
Yeah, that's true. I think if you're going to have a separate innovation sector of the business, it really needs to not operate in silo. You need to make sure you're innovating and exploring areas that are already solving the problems that your regular product teams are trying to tackle, so that there's an alignment. So right now I work really closely with our marketplace team and our innovation teams to basically make sure that the processes are in place, so that when we're thinking about the now and the next, they're thinking about the future, but we're all trying to solve the same problem, but they're just looking a little bit more ahead, or seeing what else is commoditized out there in the market that they can bring a third party in to help us scale faster. So if you're just operating on your own, then you're not going to be able to scale or release to production. But I think you really have to make sure that that team is integrated with the day-to-day working of the people working on the now, basically.
Okay, I'll jump to the third question, if that's very interesting. Do I work on side projects, or should I innovate? How do I prioritize this? I'll start on this one. They need not be exclusive. You can always work on projects that may be innovative to you, to your peers, to your teams. So you don't have to really think about, because if you're working on something, you're really passionate about it, right? If you're working something out of your day-to-day job, it has to be really passionate, and it should mean something to you. And you would believe that it would mean some benefit to you or your team or your company. Mm-hmm. So that is innovation. They need not be mutually exclusive.
Yeah, and I mean, another great book, How Google Works by Laszlo Bork, and he talks about the 20% time at Google, which people might have heard about, where engineers, I don't think they are anymore, but engineers were allowed to take 20% of their time to innovate on whatever they wanted to. And we have a similar-ish thing at Typeform, where every quarter we have a 2-week sprint, which is called the Hive Sprint, and the whole company self-organizes around whatever ideas they want to work on, and do it. And you think, wow, from an ROI point of view, you think, ooh, crikey, like that's a huge amount of cost. Like, are we going up the wall here? But we get some phenomenal stuff that comes out of it. And I think this is the other side of innovation, right? Which is like the clever stuff that you might want to do to your product might not always seem clever when you're first thinking about it. And an idea might seem a bit stupid. Or someone else might have an idea that you say like, oh, that's never going to work. And our hope is that we all develop enough product sense to be able to spot the winners and the losers and be able to sort them out. But I don't believe that anyone ever really does, right? And that's the reason why you have huge incumbent companies and marketplaces fall, because some upstart innovates in some wildly odd way and it captures sentiment. And so what I'd suggest here is like, you know, as long as you're focusing on having the cleverest and the most capable possible people on your teams as pass, like trust that their innovations might, whilst at the start that side project might seem stupid, could be something that would, you know, radically improve things. And so, yeah, I think it's important to create space for that.
We're trying to implement a new culture framework kind of at K15T called Circles. That's what we're calling it. It's not original or anything. But it's just like our CEO and a few other product leaders are available for those people that are working on what would traditionally be a side project to kind of help them build sort of a product advisory board. Bring in people who have built something similarly, used similar technologies, or just, you know, has even been a user of a innovation like that to kind of help guide them and identify those projects that are winners or maybe, you know, need to be shelved or redirected. That has been a good cultural change that's helping people pull from the knowledge that we all share.
Right. As much as I would want to continue with this conversation, we are out of time. It was lovely talking to you all. Thank you to all three of you and to me as well.
Good job, Rashid.
Thank you. Okay, so what?
That's it.
That's it.
Thank you so much, everyone.